Okay, welcome everyone to the demo of the International Communications Filing System Schedule S. I'm Jacob, I'm with the development team, and we also have with us here Kathleen, who is our point person with the FCC. I want to give her a quick chance to introduce herself as well.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming. I'm Kathleen Campbell. Most of you may know me. Some of you have heard me say this several times already, but I'm the current system owner of ICFS and in charge. I am retiring at the end of August, and Adrian McNeil, who is also on the call today, will be taking over as the point person for ICFS beginning in September. As we go through the demo today, please type your questions for us in the chat, or you can send them after the fact to the icfsdemo@fcc.gov email address. It'll come up in a slide that Jacob's going to present. We welcome your feedback, but we can't guarantee any changes you recommend get done right away. They'll go into our list of what we didn't get, but what we want later. These are also being recorded and they will be available for future viewing through the FCC YouTube channel and links on probably the helpful links of the ICFS homepage and on another page in the on the fcc.gov site. So they'll be available in the future. So thanks.
All right, with that, I will read our statements real quick before we get into the demo. So, statement on recording. This user demonstration will be recorded for future training usage. By attending, you agree to be recorded. To ask questions, you may make use of the meeting chat. And you are free to utilize the meeting chat to ask questions at any time. Also, I will be stopping periodically so that Kathleen or Adrian can answer the questions you have submitted in chat. Additionally, you may email your questions to icfsdemo@fcc.gov if you have a question after the meeting is over. This is the email address you will go to. So, let me start with our demo overview. This is kind of a continuation of the satellite space stations demo that I gave earlier today. So I'm going to be skipping some portions of the general user interface demo since I've already been over that today. If you didn't see that earlier demo, the recording will be available for you to go over. But as our overview, let me just make a quick statement about the International Communications Filing System. So it is the official electronic licensing and filing system for the Federal Communications Space Bureau and Office of International Affairs. So basically, if you're trying to apply for a license or authorization to use any kind of international communications infrastructure, such as an Earth station or a submarine cable landing, or in this case, a space station satellite, this is the place you go to fill out such an application. So today we're focusing on a very specific form in the satellite space station subsystem. So that would be our Schedule S form, and the Schedule S form is basically filled out as a supplemental form for the satellite space station new license form, the LOA form, as well as modifications and amendments of that form. So today we're going to be demoing, first of all, how the Schedule S interacts with the Form 312, the different form sections of the Schedule S, and saving, reviewing, and submitting the form. Now, it might not seem like much, but there is plenty to say about the Schedule S. So let's get into our demo. So I'm going to start at our landing page. I'm already logged in. And I'm going to go to my filings. And I'm going to find the SAT LOA form to which my demo Schedule S is attached. That one is right here. Now, there are two ways to open a Schedule S if you've already saved a SAT LOA form as a draft. You can use the Edit Schedule S button on the form, which is what I showed you earlier today, or you can use this Schedule S link right here in your list of filings to navigate directly to the Schedule S. So that's what I'm going to do today. Right. And so when you open the Schedule S, you are landed on the main menu page, and that has this S1 satellite information section displayed in the heading area. So you have, and also you have a series of navigation buttons that will change depending on what page you're on. But when you're on the main Schedule S page, the main menu, you will have this button, which will take you to the Schedule S review page. You have the Form 312 internal button, which for external users, this is not really applicable. You're not going to be able to view the internal version of your Form 312 unless you have internal accesses. So you don't really need to worry about this. But this button right here, the Form 312 button, this will take you to the external Form 312. So back to the Form 312, which is linked to this Schedule S. And then you will always have this Schedule S instructions button, which will take you to the Schedule S instructions page, where you can get specific instructions about each section of the form. And finally, you have your Save Record button, which is pretty self-explanatory. Any edits you make that you want to save, you want to click Save Record in order to preserve those. All right, and so the Schedule S is divided into 8 different sections. So the first one is the satellite information section, which is displayed on the main menu page. So,
Jacob, could I interrupt you for just a moment?
Yes.
Okay. The S1 section for A, B, C, D, and E, those pre-fill from the Form 312 when it's saved as draft. The questions on the Form 312 need to be filled out before you go into Schedule S. So they conform to a series of questions, I think around item 25 on the 312. It asks you these questions there, and it brings the information from there into here. Just wanted to let you know.
Correct. Yes. So all of these fields are linked to fields on the Form 312 main form. So, yeah, every one of the fields on this section, they're linked to Form 312 main form. So if you were to change one of these fields here, it would also change it on the Form 312 main. And then this application description field right here, that can only be edited on the Form 312. So if you want to supply that, then you would have to go there. So yeah, but we have the space station and network name and your estimated operational lifetime of space station from date of launch. So you can put however many years you want there. And we also have a question from the Form 312. Will it operate on a common carrier basis? And then This, changing this right here, the orbit type, will affect what is presented on the rest of the Schedule S, and that is something I'm going to show you a little bit later. But first, I want to go through the S2 operating frequency bands tab. So, in order to complete the Schedule S, you have to supply one or more operating frequency bands. And so basically, these are just the frequency bands you're going to be using to, in conjunction with your satellite space station, whether that's transmitting or receiving, so transmitting to Earth or receiving messages from Earth. So let's go into it. So when you're on this form, the first thing, the first field you're going to see is S2A, the type of service. And the selection you make here is going to determine the options that are available under field C. So if we were to switch this from ISS to say this one right here, okay, the first thing that would happen is everything would empty, and then you'd have a new list of options, because each of these frequency band options are tied to a particular service code. You can also select other, and then you would have to specify your upper and lower bounds in your frequency and provide a description. I'm going to set it back to ISS, and for each of these service types, you also have the option of specifying other under field C, in which case you would also have to specify your upper and lower frequency band edges. I'm going to set this back to the value we had originally, which was this one right here. And this is also an important field, the direction of transmission field. So whether this particular frequency band is going to be used in communications from Earth to space, whether it's going to be receiving communications from Earth or transmitting to Earth. We have the space-to-space receive option and the space-to-space transmit option. All right. And I'm going to return to the main menu. So those are your navigation buttons down there. You can use it to return to the main menu anytime. And next, I'm going to skip over this GSO orbital information for now. I'm going to go to the Earth to Space Receive Beams tab. So you can see here, these tabs, S4 to S7, is where you specify beams that you're going to be using in these in your satellite communications. And each one of the beams that you are going to be using, for each one of these beams, there needs to be a corresponding operating frequency band with the same direction of transmission. So if you're going to have an Earth to space receive beam, you have to have an Earth to space receive operating frequency band specified in S2. So you can, and for each of these beam forms, by the way, you have this new button right over here, which you can use to create a new beam. You also have this under operating frequency bands. And you also have the ability to open existing records this way. So you click this preview button, a modal pops up. From there, you can click open record. And that way you can open an existing record and make any edits to it that you want. Okay, so here we have our Earth to Space Receive Beams form. For each of the beams, you want to specify a beam ID. And you're going to specify an upper and lower frequency for your beam. Now, these lower and upper bounds need to fall within at least one operating frequency band that you already have specified for Earth to space. So in this case, we have an Earth to space beam with a lower band edge of 167,000 megahertz and an upper band edge of 182,000 megahertz. So these parameters fall within that. And however, if we were to enter a lower band edge less than 167 and try to save the record, it would throw an error at us. So you can see here, it's giving us that message. So I'm going to switch it back. All right, and right here we have our polarization options. This is a required field. You've got to select at least one of these options. And this field also affects this tab down here, the Receive Channels tab. So if you select yes and you save, so what will happen is this new button will disappear. So basically you're saying the space station can vary the channel bandwidth with onboarding processing. When you select yes on that option, these receive channels are no longer necessary, but we're going to keep it at no. And by the way, this new button would disappear when you click the save button, but we're going to keep it at no for now. And these fields here, asking you if it is command beam, if it is shapeable, steerable, if it can be, is it fed into transponders? So if you check these, that may require you to fill out some more fields. So if you check this one, it will require you to fill out the beam peak flux density at command threshold. If you check this one, you're required to fill out your minimum G/T. You check these two, you'll be required to supply a minimum and maximum saturation flux density. And let me go over a little bit the Receive Channels tab. So I'm going to open this record here. And you can see for each of these channels, you are going to supply a channel ID, and you're going to supply a channel bandwidth and a center frequency. So, and these fields are going to be auto-populated based on what you enter in here. So how it works is, if you have a center frequency of 171,000 and we have a channel bandwidth of 500, that means that the lower band edge for this channel is going to be 250 less than 171,000. As the upper band frequency is going to be 250 greater than 171,000. You also have to specify the channel type. And once you're done with this form, you click Save Record, and then you'll be able to navigate back to your beam using Return to Beam Information. You could also navigate back to the main menu if you are done with all your beam information. So let me do Return to Beam Information. You also have the ability to create channels in bulk. So here's how this works. I click on this button. I first supply the channel ID prefix. So this is going to be the first three letters for all of the channel IDs, and I think it's going to kind of increment so that all the channels have unique IDs. And then I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to fill out the fields similarly to what you saw when we were filling out one frequency, one receive channel. record. So we're going to supply the channel bandwidth. So I'm going to say it's like 100 and click OK. And then I'm going to enter the frequency of the first channel. So let me try this. 400. And then the center frequency of the last channel, so 171,000, say 700, to make sure it's within our specified upper and lower frequency for the whole beam. And click OK. And then we got to enter the spacing. So if I select 10, so I think my first channel was going to be 171,400. The next one was 100, and the last one was 171,700. So they're 300 apart. If the spacing is 10, that means that should create, I think, 31 channels, because the channels are all going to fall within that range. So let's try it anyways. And we'll click that, and this is optional. This is only for space-to-space channels, which this is not one. So we'll click OK. And it generated all these channels for us. And like I said, it generated 31. So that is how you create channels in bulk if you need to do that. All right. And you also have the ability to clone your beam. So I think, and you can also clone it, and it will clone the entire beam over to a new beam record with all the channels and the power flux densities. Those only apply to transmit beams. But yeah, there will be a new beam record, and you'll be able to work with all of the information that's already in that beam from the current record. All right, and we also have the ability to supply attachments for the beam. Some of these beams are going to require you to submit a GXT file, and the form will let you know if you need to do that. So in order to supply an attachment, I'm going to click New right there. And you can see it already has a beam ID specified, because I opened this form from a beam. So it's inheriting that beam ID. I also have the ability to select other beam IDs if there are any. And then you can supply here your document type. So and I think actually that is an optional field. You also, and here you have the ability to supply your file, whatever that might be. I'm going to click OK. Okay. Let me go back. Sorry. Oh, I think I know what's happening. I need to log in again. Let me do that. So I'm going to close this real quick, and then I'm going to log back in. Sorry about that. Okay. But yeah, if you ever hit like a back button and it takes you to a screen like that, just try logging in again. And I think that should fix the problem. All right. So let me go back to this one. Okay. So, as I was saying, this is where you enter your attachments for the beam. Let's complete the process. All right, and save the record. And now I'm going to click return to beam information. Right, and you can see my attachment is right. Now, going to go back to the main menu. All right, and I'm going to show you a space to earth transmit beam. So transmit beams are going to look a little bit different. And okay, so first of all, this field is no longer available. That's one thing. And let me show you another thing. This field T right here. So field T is under what rules will the associated antenna contours be submitted? So this is an optional field. But if you are on a space to earth transmit beam form or a space to space transmit beam form, and you specify either this option or this option, then field W becomes required. So, and by the way, all of the options, all of the possible options, whether applicable for geostationary satellites or non-geostationary satellites, are presented here, but they are marked as only applicable to their respective type of satellite. We didn't have the ability to really filter the list, so we just added these modifiers here to let you know that if you're on a geostationary satellite, you should only be picking these. If your Schedule S is for a non-geostationary satellite, you should only be picking these. But anyways, if I deselect this option and save the record, field W becomes uneditable again. All right. So let's reselect that. Save it. Okay. All right, and also for transmit beams, you have the ability to supply your max power flux densities. So let's see what a pre-filled form looks like here. So you're going to start by picking your reference bandwidth, and it can be one of these three choices. And then your angles of arrival. So for each of these angle ranges, you're going to type in a value. Now, each of these values has to be between -50 and -1000. And that also goes for the geographic regions of the power flux densities. And then finally, you enter here your energy dispersal bandwidth. So with that, I will go back to the main menu here. So now I will get into the orbital information tab. So if you have geostationary selected right here, what you're going to see is the GSO orbital information tab. If it's NGSO, then you're going to see the NGSO orbital information tab, and they're going to look quite different. So let's start with the GSO orbital information. So the first field you're going to select for GSO orbital information is your orbital longitude. You also must specify the orbital longitude hemisphere. And there's 4 station keeping range fields. All of these must be a value from 0 to 1. And the maximum orbital eccentricity must also be a value from 0 to 1. The roll, the pitch, and the yaw must be values between 0 and 2. Let me go back. And I do want to give you an idea of what the non-geostationary orbital information looks like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open a different form with a non-geostationary Schedule S attached and go through that orbital information there. So let me go back to the Form 312 external. And since I'm now on the external portal, I can go back to my filings. And I'm going to then open up our NGSO Schedule S right here. All right, so this is a non-geostationary satellite. This is an application for a non-geostationary satellite. So let's open our record for NGSO orbital information. And by the way, there's only going to be one of these for both GSO and NGSO Schedule S applications. So you're not going to be able to add new orbital information records. So let's open our record. All right, and as you can see here, you have like a main information layout here where you specify the total number of satellites deployed during the license term, the orbit epoch date, the celestial reference body, it could be one of these or another, and then your total number of orbital planes. Now these two values are automatically populated, so the total number of orbital planes is going to be equivalent to the number of records down here under orbital plane information. And then this field right here is calculated based off the sum of this field's number of satellites in plane for all of the orbital plane records. And I'll be able to illustrate that a little more clearly in a moment. So let me first, before I add a new record, open my existing orbital plane information record. So the first field is your orbital plane number. You are going to have to specify this yourself in order to differentiate your orbital plane records. Unfortunately, it doesn't automatically increment. And then we have our number of satellites in plane. So yeah, the number of satellites that you're going to be launching that are using this particular orbital path. And then there's a lot of technical fields here that I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on. But this field is very important. So if you are to select evenly spaced for your satellite spacing, then you're going to select your spacing angle right here and your initial phase angle. And those two values in combination with the number of satellites in plane will be used when you save the form to generate your initial phase angle information for all 5 of your satellites here. So, for example, I have 5 satellites specified and they're evenly spaced, and the initial phase angle is 30. That means The first satellite is going to have an initial phase angle of 30, and because the phase angle spacing is 20, that means that the angles afterwards are going to increment by 20. So the next one is going to be 50. The next initial phase angle is going to be 70, then 90, then 110. If you select irregularly spaced, then you're going to have to fill out this initial phase angle information manually. All right. And one thing I want to demo about this page is you have the ability to clone an orbital plane. So if we choose that, we are actually immediately taken to the clone record that is just generated, and it will inherit the orbital plane number of the cloned record. So we'll have to specify a new orbital plane number when we do that. I'm going to save the record here. So I'm going to click here now, return to NGSO orbital information. That'll take us back to the orbital information record. So let's go there. And as you can see, I now have 2 orbital planes created. And I've already numbered one of them 2, so they're distinguishable right away. And you can see that this value has increased to 10 because it is the total of all of the satellites that we will be launching for all of these records. And this value has gone up to 2 because it's the total of all the orbital plane information records. Okay, so that's what the NGSO orbital information looks like. Let me actually go back to the main menu from here and then return to our external form 312. And I'm going to go back to my filings. And I'm going to open my Schedule S that I was demoing previously. All right, and I did want to go over the Schedule S review functionality. So in order to demonstrate that, I'm going to leave a required field blank somewhere on the form. So I'm going to get rid of this value. All right, and you see it's going to throw an error message right away. So now I'm going to return to the main menu. And I'm going to go to Schedule S Review. And that's going to open up a whole new page here. And the first thing it's going to show me is a list of Schedule S errors. And I'm going to be able to use these links to go directly to the field that is triggering the error. So I left a required field blank. So when I open this link, it's going to take me back to this form. I'm going to be able to fix the error. Right. So I just did that. Now I'm going to refresh the page and hopefully that error will be gone. All right. And that is finished. So another couple of things I wanted to show you on this page. So this satellite information link is going to take you back to the main menu page we were on before. You have the ability to clone all of the information from an existing Schedule S to the current Schedule S. So you just click this button, and then you would enter here the file number of the Schedule S you want to clone. So that will be equivalent to whatever would appear here. This is a draft right now, but for a submitted Schedule S, it would be it would start with the SAT. The draft portion of the file number would be omitted. But yeah, you just type in the file number of the Schedule S you wanted to clone. And you would only be able to clone a Schedule S that is associated with your FRN. But when you typed in that Schedule S number, and you clicked Clone Schedule S, it would prompt you with a quick confirmation screen. And when you clicked OK, basically all of the information from that previous Schedule S would be cloned over to your current Schedule S. And here we have the ability to generate a PDF of our Schedule S. So when we click on that, it's going to automatically download a PDF and open the PDF in a separate tab. So see here, it's got all of the information we entered, including all those received channels, and it's separated by section. So we have the S1 section, S2, S3, S4, all that. All right. And once we have cleared our Schedule S of errors and we are sure that we are done, we also have the ability to validate the Schedule S. So yeah, that pretty much does the same thing. It kind of takes you to this same page where you can see all your errors. And we also have the ability now to submit the Schedule S since we've gotten rid of all of our errors. So let's go ahead and submit. All right, now that we've submitted, our Schedule S is going to be read-only. So you can see the new buttons are gone here, and everything's pretty much locked down. So make sure that you really are done before you click submit. And once you have submitted your Schedule S, then you are also able to submit your attached SAT LOA Form 312. So yeah, once I had filled everything out, I would be able then to submit the application. So you can see that the review to submit button already appears here on the SAT LOA. Now that I have submitted the Schedule S, it wouldn't have appeared before. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for what I want to demo today. And I will allow Kathleen to answer questions that have been submitted in chat, if there have been any, and I'm sure there have.
There have, and I answered a bunch of them by typing the answer. So there's a couple of that I missed. There was a question about minimum GT appears to be a new entry and what it was based on. The answer I received was that if it's got a red asterisk, it's required. If not, it's not. So I'm not quite sure what the real answer to that question is. We'll still work on it. People asked about the guidance documents for the system and when they'll be released. We're still working on external user guides. They're going through the editing phase right now. Hopefully they will be added to the registration page, I guess. I forget what the page is called. Ahead of time, but if not, they'll be under helpful links in the actual, will have to be posted somewhere. Anyway, they'll be in the helpful links once if the system goes live, but I hope to make them available to you prior to that. As for the mega constellations, I would like Cal to answer that question if possible. Cal, I think Adrian is going to unmute you. There you go.
So can everyone hear me?
Yeah, I can't answer you though.
Can you hear me? Yeah, the only thing I
Yes.
could say with that is, and the problem is I know I'd have to kind of defer that question more so to the to like Suleiman. Suleiman might know a little bit more, but we have APIs that can be used, and he's a little more well versed to discuss that, but I don't think he's probably on. But that's supposed to be able to allow for any type of mega constellations, enormous constellations, where if you don't want to go through this manual effort of filling in the form the way it is, the API, as far as I understand, is filling in a separate type of a spreadsheet, and then uploading. When you upload that spreadsheet, it automatically pre-populates this whole form, and then it gets attached to the form 312. So I can't speak to exactly how that works. We did put some information about it in the instructions, but I would have to actually kind of defer that to to Suleiman and that stuff to be able to give you more of the specifics on how that's done.
Okay, so Dave, if we get more information, I'll email you and let you know what the answer is. And we're going to take the questions that are in all of these chats and work up some FAQs that we'll be able to reference again in the future. All right, and then Majid, I think, is the name. If the applicant wishes to attach some explanatory notes with the Schedule S or a specific beam, where can those be attached? They can be attached at the beam, just like you would the GXT file that Jacob demonstrated. You can attach more than one attachment at the beam, or when you're on the main S1 page, at the bottom there's an attachment section, and you can use that. If it's specifically about the beam, it works better if you attach it at the beam level, because then the staff has a reference to which beam that attachment is associated. Because you can pick all different kinds of document types. Doesn't matter. And so down here on tab 8 is for all attachments. And you can hit the new there and attach it there. That's all the ones that I got after I typed answers to the others. Someone asked when it would go active. The week of August 19th is the goal. There'll be public notices that kind of explain this. There'll be a period of time before that week that both systems will not be operational, and you won't be able to file any applications, and a PM will go out about that as well. We're talking about that this week. We're having a meeting to work out the schedule, because the data from the current ICFS must be migrated into the new ICFS, and we can't have that happen while people are still filing things in the folder. So if you have applications in progress, I would suggest that you get them submitted by August 9th, unless a public notice comes out and asks and tells you a different date. Just to make sure it's all together. And there'll be instructions if for some reason there's an emergency and there needs to be an STA or something. There'll be procedures, sort of like during a coup, for anyone who's been involved in any of those. What was the others? Oh, about engineers coming in and doing the Schedule S before the attorneys have gotten into the 312. Well, for people who have both persons as part of the putting it together process, somebody has to start the 312 and answer a few questions and save a draft before you can get to the Schedule S. So just a few questions need to be answered. Like I said, I think there are question 25 on the 312 that fill in information on this S1 page in the Schedule S, and they need to be done before you put it in, before the Schedule S is even available to fill out. What I don't know is if an engineer with a different username and password than the person who started the filing, even if they're associated with the FRN, can also access the filing. I have to research that. And we'll get an answer as soon as we can. But not during this demo. And the first question that I answered was, we have access to the old Schedule S submissions to allow creating new Schedule S from an old submitted Schedule S. And the answer really is, I don't know. There's a meeting about the migration process with me and the team on Wednesday. And I'll know more about that then. I just don't know. I know that when the last Schedule S software was developed, in the 2014-2016 timeframe, that the answer to that question was yes, you'll have to fill out a brand new one because the other data couldn't be migrated over. And it's very possible that's true here too, but I'm not positive and I don't want to say, no, you'll never have access to it until I know better. So if anyone wants to send an email to the ICFS demo on these topics that I don't have complete answers to, feel free to do that and we can respond to you there once we have the answer. I hope I have answered everyone's questions. And if anyone else has any, please type them in. Okay, Jacob, while you're on here, let's scroll down to questions 25. Yeah. So 25A is tells you it's an MGSO, then the operational lifetime, the name of the satellite network. Those are 3 of the 4 fields on that S1 that need to be done. And then I think the other one is 44 down at the bottom.
Yes, this one.
Yeah, 41, the application description. And that's part of it. There was one other one there on the Schedule S. What was the other one on the S1?
Oh,
So it's 25A, B, and C.
yeah,
You have to.
Then I actually just go to the scheduler. So yeah, we have the orbit type. Oh, it's this one, common
The
carrier.
common carrier question. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's above the 25.
This one right here.
Yeah. So 21, 25, A, B, and C, and 41. Those 5 questions on the 312 need to be filled in prior to, and then the form 312 saved as a draft prior to entering the Schedule S to fill it out. So. Oh, I'm sorry, Ethan. We're still working on an answer to that. I didn't know. So the process is Ethan asked about when the recordings will be posted. The process is we send this recording today to our audiovisual group, who cleans it up and gets rid of all the dead air at the beginning and that kind of stuff. And they send it off to the closed captioning folks to do closed captionings on it. And then they'll post it to YouTube. We sent a message to that team to ask, but we haven't heard back yet. So I don't know the answer to that. No, Renee, blank copies are not yet available. When they are, they'll be up on the website too. Because we're still taking care of defects and they are not complete. Not all of them are perfected. So we're not allowed to put them up until they are. And yeah, as soon as they are, they'll be up there. But at the moment, they're not. Because while we're giving you these demos, we are also doing end-to-end testing and taking a hard look at all the forms and all of the processes and all that kind of stuff from the staff side. So we're showing you the best we've got. You'll notice that there was a couple of mistakes, and we're trying to get them all fixed. They probably won't get them all fixed because we're human, but we're trying to get as many done as possible. And I think PRA may play into it too. Because Paperwork Reduction Act is an important part in us being able to show you what the forms are. Though, if you know anything about the PRA, all of the draft forms prior to about a month ago were sent to OMB, and I think they make them publicly available over there. But I've never had to go look, so I don't know for sure. But some of you may have. Yeah. Because we have preliminary authorization for all of them, we have to send the final version to them as well. Okay, there you go. So send us an email to icfsdemo@fcc.gov if you have additional questions, or you want to follow up on any of these questions I didn't completely answer, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Thank you so much for coming and watching and learning about our new system. We hope you'll love it, or at least like it better than the old one.